Okay, so welcome back to part 2 of our video today. We don't have much more to go. What I want you to realize is how important it is for our students to be reading constantly. B. Miller and Boot in 2006 found that repeated reading of a storybook resulted in greater average gains in word knowledge for young children. They also found that word explanations taught directly during the reading of a storybook enhanced their understanding of word meaning. So Nash and Stoling, also in 2006, found a complementary idea that a contextual approach to instruction produced greater vocabulary gains than lessons that emphasized just learning definitions out of context. So that's why intentional lesson planning is so important. When you're planning a unit of study, whether that be in a content area or whether that be in your language arts program, finding read-alouds, whether those are chapters from chapter books, picture books, informational texts of various natures, articles, and so forth. You need to be intentional, making sure you're giving the students an opportunity to be immersed in that language, that you're not teaching it in isolation, but that you're finding articles and other texts that are reflecting that language back to students so they can see it across a variety of contexts. Additionally, they recommend, and I recommend more actually, that students should be reading an informational article once a week. Have time for self-selected reading across many different text types. Encourage your students to be text detectives. That means they are given a purpose and they are looking for mysteries inside their stories and their articles, and they need to just have an opportunity to learn, not just through articles and magazines and online media, but they need to also have some primary documents. That means firsthand historic accounts written by people who lived during that time in history. So if you go to this address, www.loc.gov, you can find all kinds of primary documents that have been provided to you for teaching for absolutely free. So I encourage you, especially as you head into your senior year next year and start planning a unit to teach, think about those resources. You might even want to start a Pinterest board or a bookmarks tab that as you gain ideas in various classes, you have some resources. Whether you've selected a particular topic or not is irrelevant at this point, because if you know you want to teach a great quality unit, then yeah, some of it you'll weed out later in the fall next year, but you should take advantage of things like primary documents and free resources for poetry and just different ways to immerse that unit, whether it's for a content area classroom or a language arts classroom. Immerse it in quality text experience for young adults. In 2009, Kelly Gallagher wrote a book called Read Aside and argued that the focus on testing preparation robs our students of the opportunity to build background through wide and varied reading. This is really true. Painfully so and ironically so in our culture today. And some teachers just shrug their shoulders and say, what can we do about it? But Gallagher suggested these 5 things right here. An article a week was her key highlight. She said, this is building prior knowledge through a short, quick read of quality material on a particular learning topic, and it's teaching them how to do well on their tests without overtly teaching to the test. It can be much more fun and engaging. Take several articles and have the students have an opportunity to self-select what topic they want to learn about. They can all be aligned to standards, but they can also be matched better that way by giving students power of choice, which is huge, and also by giving them opportunities to find things of interest to them in relationship to meeting that standard. Kelly Gallagher, on page 38 of her book, Read Aside, said, those students who sit down to the exam with the broadest base of prior knowledge will have the highest chance of scoring well. That's why it's exposure to so many different text types and being able to have intentional word study in the classroom and times to really just delve into the wonder of words. It's so vital to the success of our students and building their base of knowledge. Here's one example of a way that you could get students using words. There's a word, definition, synonym for that word, another word that means the same thing, unique expression, association, or example associated with that word. I really liked that because sometimes words are used in common everyday expressions and we don't think about it. You can look all through here, but that's just one example of a way that you can get students interacting with words in their textbooks. And then there's another idea of getting students to use their new vocabulary in fun and various ways. This one's called Yarns, and it was by the Reading Lady. She has a great blog. She said the teacher chooses 5 meaningful vocabulary words from the story they're about to read, that next chunk of text that will be read together. And she divides the class into cooperative groups of 4 to 5 students, and then challenges them to see which group can create the wildest, most exaggerated story using those same 5 words. And then they get time to share their stories and then read the real story. So the teacher reads the real story to them, and they're able to compare and contrast the wild variations that they all used, including the author versus the different cooperative learning groups. And they get to see how you can take the same words and put them into such a wide variety of contexts to create different stories. Really fun. List group label is really great. Students are processing skills. They're given a list of words. It's kind of like a blind concept sort. So students are given a list of words, and then they have to list them and categorize them in ways that are meaningful to them and be able to have a working vocabulary around their explanation for each list. So here's Brittany's list, here's Crystal's list. Here's these same words put into the categories that the teacher had. So students are then having to analyze those words, identify them, list them out, interpret their meanings enough to categorize them, sometimes generalizing words to make them fit in a category, and they're applying them. So it's really all-encompassing concept. It's really great. Other ideas, ABC brainstorming, where students get the beginning letter of the alphabet in order to get the whole alphabet with boxes. And as you're going through a lesson, they write down any word that starts with that letter in the appropriate box. So the challenge is, can you find a word A to Z that was new to you or unique to you that you liked? So that's it in a nutshell. There's my resources. There were a lot on this one. So I hope you've learned a little bit more about building vocabulary and background knowledge among your students, because vocabulary instruction is a very big part of quality word study time, especially in the middle grades. Vocabulary consists of a very vital chunk of time, because hopefully as students are progressing into that derivational relations stage, they're focusing on chunks of meaning inside of words, which is a type of vocabulary study. And they're picking apart and teasing apart words. They're not so much learning in those 7th, 8th, and 9th grade levels. They're not learning, IGH says I. They're not learning the separate sounds anymore. Now they know those sounds, and they're interested in the meanings behind those words, behind those roots, and you as the teacher have the powerful opportunity to teach those in relevant, fun, engaging means so that they're continuously hungry for more words and more knowledge. Well, hopefully you learned a lot today. I look forward to seeing your completed KWL charts next time we meet.